Thank you so much. And especially I'm grateful to my friend Avla for this invitation, and congratulations to ECS for this amazing forum. The previous session was so spectacular. I hope we can maintain the same level in this one. So let me start by saying, before we address the topic of trade and investment, I like to start by saying that the recent macroeconomic reforms that Egypt have undertaken very hardly earned in a moment of tremendous geopolitical instability and many exogenous shocks deserve congratulations. I think Egypt is at a turning point because many of the reforms introduced, such as liberalizing the exchange rate to prevent abrupt devaluations in the future, or assuring that inflation is under control. This constitutes the first and most important signal for investors. It is necessary but not sufficient, but it must be the beginning. And this has been done. So Egypt is definitely at a turning point. Following the efforts to recover from COVID and despite all the geopolitical challenges that have disrupted trade and investment, Egypt has managed to reinforce its credibility vis-a-vis external partners and becoming a very important investment destination, as you can see, looking at the FDI inflows that have really increased very recently. Of course, this is only part of the story. We heard this morning, together with macroeconomic reforms, we must also watch at the structural side of the equation. And this is perhaps where additional reforms are already being undertaken, which are also of critical importance. Here, I like to mention the divestment program, which is geared towards creating a level playing field for private sector companies. On the one hand, this divestment program will also help with fiscal stability because it will lower the burden of the government and will help also to maintain the downward path to debt reduction. But more important, divestment is very, very critical for the emergence of a strong private sector that is capable of creating jobs and leveraging Egypt's capacity to diversify production and exports and therefore attract foreign investors and trade partners. There is no doubt, having said that, there is no doubt that Egypt has a much greater potential to integrate in the global value chain. Right now, it exports in relatively very small proportions, as the minister had just said, and it has the potential to diversify and consolidate itself as a regional trading hub. Diversification in the non-extractive sectors is needed, and for that, there are a number of barriers that should be removed. I will mention them quickly, and if you want, in the second part, we can go deeper into some of them. I think the first one is the non-tariff barriers that are as important as the tariff barriers to trade. And here I would single out two: the logistics and transport connectivity obstacles, including rail transportation, that must be removed. I know that Egypt is already developing several logistics centers and inland dry ports to alleviate constraints and promote an intermodal way of transportation while also decarbonizing. And I want to single out this project that I believe is being financed by the IFC to link the Alexandria seaport with the October 6th dry port in the greater CAIRO area. I think this will create an amazing railway pass that will reduce the traffic in trucks, which will be much, much better for efficiency of transportation, but also will allow to make great progress towards decarbonization. So this is just a very, very important example. It will also help with safety and certainly is going to attract many private sector operators. Other obstacles that must be removed have to do with technology. To move up the value of the chain, it's essential to introduce technology components, which, as we heard in several of the sessions, technology is moving so fast that no country can make progress and sustain positive GDP per capita rates of growth without adopting new technologies. And I believe now this is an area of new technology revolution. The industrial revolution is over. Now it's technology evolution. And this can come in many ways. Of course, every country needs to invest more in innovation and R&D, but I believe also that a lot of this technology may come through the FDI, when the inflows of foreign investment come to the country, the receptor country must make sure that those permeate to the rest of the economy, that create jobs and positive associations between the local companies and the big companies or multinationals that come to the country. There are other improvements, just two more, regarding regulations, especially for small and medium-sized enterprises, the time needed to obtain construction processes and shop licenses, and other measures to improve competitiveness initiatives, especially around industrial zones. And finally, access to finance. I think it's very, very important. Promoting financial inclusion, including for women, and reducing the financing gap faced by small and medium-sized enterprises will be essential in Egypt, as it is, as a matter of fact, for all emerging markets. So maybe I will stop here, and in the second round, I can talk specifically more about what sectors and what products offer most potential for exports in Egypt. I actually have a slightly different view on what's happening with global value chains. I think that at least still 50% of the global trade still happening through global value chains. And it's true, it's been going downwards, and it happened even before the COVID-19. It started before. And this was aggravated by the Ukraine crisis. And yes, there is a movement towards regionalization. That's for sure. But that doesn't mean that this goes against globalization, because sometimes trading with your partners and your neighbors is a way to be better inserted in the global value chains. So my views on that are a bit different. However, I think I agree that the Mediterranean has a great opportunity now, and that Europe must seek this opportunity, and it would be mutually beneficial for Europe to reduce the dependence, especially for high technology intermediate inputs from China, Asia in general, but particularly China, and look much more at Mediterranean countries and the potential that they offer. And it's not just because they are nearby and we are going to pollute less when we import from Egypt, rather than bringing everything from China, getting stuck in the Suez Canal when there is a problem, having to go towards South Africa and multiplying by 4 the cost of transport. It's not only that, it's that also there is a good knowledge of markets, of consumers, movement of people and capital between Europe and the Mediterranean that we must continue promoting and exploiting. And on this topic, in the center that I was privileged to lead in the last years, we did a specific study to see what are the industries and the sectors which offer a comparative advantage, which could increase production and exports towards Europe, goods that Europe already imports from China. And we came up with a few sectors, and I have the details. So it was a very, very detailed study that was done with Professor Gassiorek and Patricia Auger from the Aix-Marseille University. We went down the statistics of the Comtrade, and we came up with several 8 groups in Egypt that offer this potential to export much more to the European Union, where the capacity to produce and export already exists, but the percentages are still way too low. And Europe, for some reason, for many reasons, continue to import from China. What are those reasons? Some have to do with the Chinese policy of subsidizing, sending very cheap products, all over the markets in the world, something that we cannot control, but also we can control our own bottlenecks and obstacles. What we can improve is the logistics, the transportation, the rule of law, the judicial security, all this, so that Europe realizes that the potential to produce and export exists in these neighboring countries. So concretely, in the case of Egypt, the groups are 8 initially, and then we go down to 3 products that offer a very, very high comparative advantage. The groups are, the first one is salt and sulfur, the second is fertilizers, the third one is essential oils and perfumes, plastics, glass and glassware, natural cultured pearls, iron and steel, and electrical machinery and equipment. These are the sectors that offer most potential, and where some of the barriers that we were talking about earlier could be removed because the demand from Europe is there. Of course, a lot of this could happen in the context of the trade agreements. And since I have the expert next to me, I won't say more, but I think that it's a missed opportunity, the fact that this negotiations on a deeper trade agreement between the EU and Egypt have been paralyzed since 2013. If we are serious about the new neighborhood policy, and if we are serious about promoting this trade between the EU and Egypt, I think that the trade agreements have a very important role to play. And if the agreements are not the best vehicle, maybe we can discuss other types of investment agreements that also include the trade provisions. But I think this is something that needs to be revamped and reviewed, because the potential is there. And Egypt, on the other side, it needs to also do its homework. And when I look at other sectors, for example, textile, automotive, chemicals, agribusiness, one factor that struck me was the large presence of government institutions everywhere, refineries, fiber and yarns in the textile, it's everywhere. And it's okay, SOEs are fine, but sometimes when they prevent the private sector, 100% private sector to emerge, they could constitute a disincentive for the expansion of economic activity. So I think that the divestment program I was mentioning before is something worth pursuing. Private sector companies should feel like they are in a level playing field, and there should be more transparency. The regulators should not also be the operators. I have a big admiration for a very famous fiscal economist, Vito Tanzi, who is now close to 90. But he says, you give to the government more than 30% of GDP, you run into inefficiencies. So the role of the government doesn't always have to be produce, export, do everything. It has to be to promote the role of private companies and support them with regulations, with good laws, with security. But for an economy to take off and really have sustained positive rates of GDP per capita growth, this equilibrium between the private and the public sector is essential. And for that, I think that the role of the government must be there, but must not do everything.
Dr. Mack, you said 8 sectors and 3 products. What are the 3 products?
The 3 at the end, if you go down.
I'm concentrating.
Yeah, you refine more, you go to 3, which are metals, fertilizers, both mineral and chemical, and the third one is plastics, propylene, and other olefin polymers. Yes, I'll try to be brief, but I want to make 4 quick points.
Please.
One is that I want to mirror the trade relations with the geopolitical trade-offs that were discussed in the previous session. I think that Egypt has a great opportunity on trade, the same way it has a great opportunity geopolitically being part of the new BRICS, where Egypt is going to be able to influence the world also through relationships with Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, Ethiopia, who are now part of the new BRICS. I think on trade is the same, because Egypt has signed the Africa Free Continental Trade Agreement, and also it's in negotiations with the EU for obvious reasons. There is a potential market there too, and also the proximity to the Gulf countries. So Egypt is in a privileged position to become a trade hub using all these different trade measures, provided that some of the tariff and non-tariff barriers are properly eliminated. My second point is on the job creation. I heard somebody saying that we have to, attract FDI and make sure there is an appropriate business environment to create jobs. But also we have to give the youth the opportunity to create jobs themselves. And for that, we need to simplify the regulations and the taxes for small and medium-sized enterprises, and also adapt the curriculum in universities to the needs of the labor market. And this is not specific to Egypt. It's happening worldwide, because the technology is advancing very quickly and the labor market is demanding a lot of skills that we didn't study when we were at university a few years ago. So that is another point. My third point is on textiles. Yes, the comparative advantage is there, but in another study by the IFC, it's indicated the predominance of the public sector, the fact that there are still many tariff and non-tariff barriers, and the need to more sophisticated skills including updating the curriculum to move up into higher value-added activities. If I had more time, I will give you the example of Inditex, because I'm from Spain, and that's the textile sector, but maybe we can discuss that with coffee. And then the last point is, please allow me to build on the recent Nobel Prizes that insisted on the quality of institutions and the broader concept of the wealth of nations. To see where a country is going, in addition to GDP per capita growth, we need to look at three other assets: the quality of institutions, rule of law, governance. Second is the human capital that you accumulate through education and adapting the education to the labor market. And the third one is how you manage your natural resources. And Egypt has the natural resources. There is a huge opportunity to diversify the energy sources of renewables. And I just want you to keep those three concepts in mind moving forward. Thank you.